Pop quiz, hot shots. It's Tuesday, and Bill Landis has questions for you, Ryan Day and Jim Knowles. Welcome to the Podcast Daily.
I feel like I'm on the spot here.
You are on the spot. This is your show, baby.
Why am I in the hot seat? Ryan Day is the one that gets paid the big bucks to answer questions.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's a pop quiz for everybody.
That's right.
What did we learn, and then what did they learn? And then you ask, hey, did the thing that I learned match up with what you learned?
Can you tell me I'm right, please? Oh, I'm wrong? Okay.
Yeah. How much stuff do you think we will really learn on Tuesday about what we're seeing? I just have this weird sense that, like, Ryan Day doesn't care that they are underwhelming victories. Like, that doesn't seem to bother him at all right now. I'm sure there's part of him that is, but, like, I think he anticipated that the first 2 weeks were going to be, like, a slow ramp up, and he's treated it more like an NFL preseason. Maybe that's wrong, but that's the way I feel like they've treated it.
I guess that's all well and good if that is the way that he is going about this. He should say it if that's the case, and maybe do a better job of setting expectations. I don't know. I don't know what we're going to learn. Like, there's going to be a lot of quarterback stuff, right? Like, and probably, hopefully anyway, like the end of that conversation, like, is Kyle the guy? What did you think of the process to get to this point? What has Kyle shown you? What has Kyle shown you these 2 weeks to get you here? And then, like, what does that mean for the offense now to have the guy in place, I think, are probably the most important questions. There are other larger picture issues, I think, with the offense about running game efficiency and third down efficiency. Like, they're really bad on third down. Like, the thing I hope we don't get into on Tuesday is more discussion about the lack of plays, because I truly think it is like a meaningless conversation.
Okay.
They have fewer plays because they're not playing well. Like, he's talking about it as if a thing that is being done to them, and that is not the case. Yes, the rules are different. They have had fewer possessions. That is a fact. They're not making the most of their opportunities, which is, I think, the chief charge of the man who is running the offense. I'd rather talk about that than how few plays you have. I have found that conversation quite frustrating.
Yeah, and I think, if you're talking about, I think you wrote on Sunday that last year's average was right at 67, and they had 60 on Saturday.
Yeah.
And they were close against Indiana.
They had 67 against Indiana.
Like, if you don't drop a third down, just one of them, then you're probably going to get at least one more play, probably three more, maybe more than that, and you chip away towards 67. So, like, I think, and I wrote about this in my questions on Monday, I think that there is an element where Ohio State has to adjust to the clock rules, because their opponents are going to keep doing this over and over and over to them, especially if they are overwhelmed physically. This is the best chance for them to affect the scoreboard, taking, it seems like, purposeful delay of games to work on the clock and keep Ohio State's offense on the sideline. Like, I do think that is a reality. Is it going to skew the numbers? Not if you finish every drive,
right,
or more of them. Not if you complete more passes on third down or move the chains more. You'll get the numbers that you need, both in terms of plays and on the scoreboard, just by executing better. But, he's made one adjustment, which was taking the ball on the coin toss, because he wants to make that an emphasis and take that out of the arsenal for the opponent, get his team going right away. And the other part is he can run more tempo if that's the concern, and that they need to get more plays or more touches or whatever else. But other than that, the only other option is to just play better.
Number one on that list is play better. They could play faster. They play quite slow. And I never thought they played fast, but now that we're having this conversation, I'm paying closer attention to just like what their pace actually is. It's like 28 seconds in between plays, which is pretty low, like nationally. They could definitely push the tempo more to help themselves out and get more plays. The possessions piece, I think, is more about the defense, right? Can you get a team off the field when, like, Youngstown State should not convert 3 third downs on one possession against you? It's a different conversation when you're playing against better offenses. I admit that. These first two games, I think it's probably a fair criticism to say that the defense could have gotten off the field quicker a time or two, especially against Youngstown State. There were some prolonged drives there, but Ohio State had prolonged drives as well. Like, their last drive was like 13 plays and took 7 minutes off the clock, and they didn't score. That's part of the problem too. So it's not. It is an adjustment. I'm not pretending like it's not an adjustment. The state of play has changed a little bit. Other teams seem to be adapting to it quite well, and I don't know why Ohio State can't. And it does seem to me like Ryan Day is fixated on this in a way that I don't think is all that good for the offense. He just needs to let it go and just play. Do what you need to do to make sure your players play more efficiently. Stop getting so hung up on the clock and how often you're standing on the sideline. Like everyone's playing the same game.
Right. All right. So we can set aside the clock. You think that we're probably going to stop talking about the quarterbacks?
Yep.
What else?
Maybe just a general offensive line assessment. He seemed pretty upset with the play of that group after the game. And when I rewatched it, I thought it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was good, but it was probably a little better than I thought on first blush. And I'm wondering if he feels the same way. The penalties are one thing, right? You got to clean those up. You can't have guys knocking helmets off and taking touchdowns off the board, obviously. But I thought the pass protection was good, as you would hope it would be against Youngstown State, and the run game was not particularly effective, other than Travion getting a couple big hits, which was nice to see. But it did seem like it was easier for the offensive linemen to identify people and where they were going. So I'm curious if he saw it the same way, or if, after sleeping on it for a night or two, if he feels any better about the way that position group played.
It didn't seem like the communication stuff that we heard so much about last week was as much of a problem. I don't know. We'll see which Buckeyes talk this week about how they feel that win. I think that Donovan Jackson will probably be part of that group, and that would be interesting. Josh Fryer really didn't pull any punches about that. And just from up in the press box or watching on TV, it didn't seem like they were, struggling to communicate, pass off, as you said, identify where to go and block things. So that was a plus, but, you're going to have fits and starts and ups and downs when you're breaking in 3 new starters, and that was the penalty. I think that's what irritates a coach more than anything. It wasn't physicality or athleticism that wasn't good enough. It was more of a technique thing and getting beat or at least getting caught with holding and having the officials throw the flag. Those are irritating because they come with, defined yardage and setting you back behind the chain. So yeah, I think still that falls in the correctable bucket for Ohio State, but I guess we'll see. They're running out of time for that. And I know it's a long season. Western Kentucky's probably not going to pose a tremendous amount of challenge for that group up front. They could, and we'll see what happens.
They're not a particularly good defensive team.
Yeah. But all of this is geared towards what is it going to look like in South Bend. And so there is a deadline for all of these things, whether that was quarterback, growing pains and being able to play at a level that's good enough to show that you are a national championship contender. And that time is coming rapidly here.
Yeah, and Ryan Day probably isn't going to tell us one way or the other if he's feeling good about where they are heading up to South Bend. But I guess I would say that it felt, if it was a step in the right direction, it was a small one, but it certainly didn't feel like a step back or recurring issues against Youngstown State, which I guess is a good thing for the offensive line. But you really want to see it come together this week. And it's part of the reason why I think they're not messing around with pulling guys out or even really seemed interested in that. The offensive line played the whole game, I think, right against Youngstown State too. So those guys have played every offensive snap so far, and they need it. And frankly, I think regardless of how this game goes this week, they probably need to do it too. If the mindset is we have our 5 and we're not going to entertain the idea of Luke Montgomery or Tegra Shabola possibly entering the starting lineup at some point, then this 5 should probably get every single snap in this game as well. And then hopefully Ryan Day can come out of that feeling a little more emboldened about their ability to go to South Bend in 2 weeks.
Okay. That's a lot of offense. I know that you have questions for Jim Knowles.
Yeah, the stuff we were talking about with Tyvis Powell on the Rooster show, right? What's up with the blitzes not getting home and the pass rush that we heard so much about in the offseason, it hasn't really shown up yet. I just want to know from Jim Knowles, does he think that's an issue? Is it as frustrating for him as it is for some of us watching it when Ohio State just can't quite get to the quarterback, and it's a carryover from last year. I know this is a conversation we've sort of been having for too long because it should be different, but I know it just seems like they can't do all of what they want to do or be what they want to be defensively unless they start getting some of that stuff. Jim Knowles' defenses at Oklahoma State, however they went about their business, were pretty good at getting tackles for loss and sacks, and this Ohio State defense last year and so far this year just has not been. So does he see markers of that coming down the road, or does he need to potentially rethink the way they want to go about their business so that they can get more of them?
I don't know that question will get answered either, but it needs to be. I think it needs to be pretty clearly described what the expectations are and how they plan to proceed, because there, whether this is reality or not, there is at least a perception from me alone. If I'm alone, fine, that the defensive line and the rest of that group are not on the same page. And I think the number of blitzes, you and Doug were talking about this in the postgame on Saturday, and it's a good point. Like, you look at the plays, the explosives, safeties being isolated one-on-one, and that's coming when you have to bring more pressure. Like, it seems like Jim Knowles doesn't have faith or understanding or belief that the rushmen by themselves are going to get home, and that he has to find other ways to account and affect the quarterback and bring pressure. And that's just hard to wrap my mind around. I don't even think that I can explain it well enough to get to where someone could answer it directly, and Jim Knowles wouldn't do that. But it is this part where he says Larry's got that group and that defensive line, and that's a different world. I don't like that answer, because to me that only tells my brain, validates what I'm thinking, which is that there's something that's broken, or communication that's a bridge that's not connected. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm watching.
Yeah.
And if he says it that way, it makes me think that they don't know. And he probably does. Like, the reality is that there has to be something better going on.
Yeah.
But it's not matching up on Saturdays, and I'm trying not to overreact to it, but I can't help it.
Yeah, I hear you, because I try not to overreact. Pose the question without, I guess, acting like it's the end of the world. I don't know, because there's a long season left, or a lot of season left, but it is very funny to me sometimes when we talk to Jim Knowles about this conversation, or the conversation about the defensive back play last year. He always says, like, oh, when I get in front of the team, I say, like, coverage and rush, and they all say working together. And it's like, well, are you?
Yeah.
The players probably feel like they are, but, like, are the coaches? Because it does feel a little disjointed. It reminds me almost of, like, the conversation in 2021 where Ryan Day was, like, annoyed that he had to talk about that defense. Like, brother, you're the head coach. That comes with the territory.
Yeah.
Jim Knowles, you're the coordinator. The defensive line should be doing whatever you want them to do. It doesn't matter how long the position coach has been here or how good he is at his job. Larry Johnson is a veteran who is very good at his job. But yeah, something's not clicking. It's the defensive tackles. I will say, I think have played well, and the run defense has been pretty good. They don't have a ton of TFLs, but they're also not giving up a lot of like gash plays either, which is good to see. But they're just not getting there, man. And like, they just watching, especially JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer, just like, they're JT has had like good games, but you don't really see him kind of disrupting things in the pass game all that much, and Jack even to a more kind of magnified extent, that the lower impact that he has on those things. So maybe it's a personnel thing. Maybe they need to get more Kenyatta Jackson, more Caden Curry, more Mitchell Melton, more CJ Hicks, perhaps. I don't know what the answer to that is, but I think status quo is not going to get them very far unless they want to just be a defense that tries to keep everything in front of them again and isn't so concerned about getting the quarterback. But that, from what I've gathered from watching Jim Knowles previously, that is not really who he wants to be. He wants to create havoc.
Well, and he wouldn't be blitzing at the level that he is if that wasn't important.
Yeah.
I mean, right? You wouldn't be dialing up extra pressure unless you feel like you had to put a quarterback under duress, which is the goal of every coordinator. And that's why I think it's the timing of this, where it is a pure passing team that's coming to the Horseshoe on Saturday, and there's going to be so many more pass rush reps available for us to watch. Is like, it's almost like it was scripted.
Yeah.
Because we're going to spend all week talking about it. We already have since Saturday. But if you're going to win at the highest level, there's no choice. You have to win up front. Your defensive line has to be able to do it. You can't blitz half the time. Look what happened to some of the plays against Georgia, or what's happened when you had one-on-one matchups in the secondary and the loss to Michigan in the last, both years really, but last year specifically. Like, it can't. If you don't have Chase Young, fine, but somehow you have to be able to generate it with four. Stunts, twists, games, whatever you have to do. Like, it can't be solely from blitzes, but Jim Knowles and Larry Johnson have to figure that out, because right now I don't think there's any other way to evaluate it except that it's not good enough to win a national championship. Now, they weren't in a playoff game on Saturday, so maybe they don't care. Yeah. That's possible too. That could be part of the preseason ramp-up. Maybe we'll see something very different on this Saturday or in South Bend. I don't know. That's the part where I'm trying not to, hyper-react to it. But when we're watching these games, and we've got to have something to talk about, I'm not sure how there would be anywhere else to start as a concern except that.
I mean, there really isn't anything on the defensive side other than that. I think the secondary has been pretty good. I want to get healthier at safety, I guess. The corners, I think, have been excellent. The linebackers have been what you expect them to be. It's just that front and it not quite matching up with some of the praise we heard for it in spring practice. And you're right, these last 2 games probably doesn't matter all that much. We'll see about this week against Western Kentucky, but I think if the ability to bring that with you or not to South Bend, I think will go a long way in determining the outcome of that game because they have a quarterback, Notre Dame does, in Sam Hartman, who wants to stand back there and hold the ball for a long time and throw it down the field. And if you have a good pass rush, you can get to him. And he fumbled twice last week against NC State. But if you can't get to him and he can just live a charmed existence back there behind a really good offensive line, then I think it could be a long day for Ohio State's defense. So they got to figure something out.
Right. Anything else on your mind?
No. That's it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's an easy one.
Yeah.
We don't have any players on Tuesday. It's like, all right, here's your question.
Just Ryan Day and Jim Knowles.
The head coach of the offense and the head coach of the defense.
It is simplified. I think I like it. Do we miss not having players on Tuesdays?
I don't. I think it's fine.
Yeah. I don't love getting players at the podium. So if it's the choice is players at the podium or no players, I think I'm okay with the way it is.
Yeah, if like the players that I requested were at the podium, that's a negative for me because I'm hoping to talk to them not in front of 65 other people.
Right.
It's like, oh shoot. Xavier Johnson's up there. Now everybody gets to hear my question for him. Yeah. I don't want that. No. I do like this better. But, and that gives us a lot more to talk about on Wednesday.
That's right.
Which is hump day. But that's not today because today's Tuesday. And we're getting ready to go from here to the Woody Hayes Athletic Center.
Got to jet over there.
We're almost late to talk to Ryan Day and Jim Knowles. So we'll have the stream of that up on the podcast. And there's so much more coming. Buckeye Q's, Kings of Columbus, the betting show. It's a huge week, so we have to have all the content that you've come to expect to get ready for Western Kentucky, Saturday, 4 o'clock. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. For Bill Landis, I'm Austin Ward. We'll talk to you later.